storytellers and readers. Welcome to another episode of I'll Read That, the show where your stories get heard. Whether you're an unpublished author, a self published independent, or just someone with a really cool story to tell, this is your space to shine. In each of these episodes, I'll be reading your submitted story out loud, giving it a voice. I'm going to explain it in a simpler way. Sometimes when we talk and we read our own stories, we add our own inflections. I'm giving you an opportunity to hear that inflection from a fresh reader. All these reads are cold reads, um, and this is just going to give you a chance to develop and grow your story and your craft. You'll also get feedback from other writers, readers, and just general creatives to help sharpen that and help take that story and your storytelling to the next level. So, if you have a story that's been just dying to be read, and for someone to jump up and go, I'll read that, I think you found the place. Submit that story, get heard, and let's grow this together. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have something worth sharing, you already know. So, we are back in David Jace's novel, Thassodar Jax, Galactic Ranger, Chapter 20. Species Log, Human Jax Earth, 21018. Humans' perspective of the universe has a varied history. At one point, they believed that their planet was the center of the entire universe, and that even their star revolved around them. When it was discovered that the planet instead circled their star, along with a handful of others, it was still some time before they recognized that they were but one small part of a larger galaxy, and, in fact, nowhere near the center of it. Even now, so close to leaving their own atmosphere and entering the larger galactic community, some humans believe that their planet is not spherical but flat. It will be interesting to see what happens when they leave the planet. On the topmost level of the facility, Valentina stayed in the shadows as she crept toward the storage rooms. Her hair was tucked into the hood of the dark jacket, and Visu had found a pair of chitin forearm armor to fit her. She had had to wrap the utility belt around her waist twice to get it to fit at all, so on one side one loop of belt hung lower than the other. But it worked, and it was useful for carrying the gear she needed. She reached the first storage chamber and found the heavy metal door, secured by large hinges with a small window set high in the unit. She stretched, but it was too high for her. She considered jumping, but worried it would make too much noise. She looked around for inspiration. The hinges were large enough that she was able to get a toehold on the lowest one, grabbing the third hinge by her fingertips. She pulled up, but as soon as her fingers slipped, she dropped to the metal platform. She held perfectly still, then peeked over the railing where Thassodar was stalling for time. No one was looking up. She let out a breath that she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She pulled the two trackers from a pocket on the belt and held one in each hand, turning on the magnetic grip with a finger press. Using the tracker for grips, she again took the toehold and worked her way up the door, releasing and activating the magnetic grips as needed. She got her toes on the second hinge, which was high enough to reach the window. She leaned over and looked through. Nothing. The room was empty. She wasn't sure whether to be relieved or frustrated that she'd worked so hard for an empty room. She quietly climbed down and began working her way to the room on the other side. South storage is clear, she whispered in the forearm armor. Message received, came in the whispered response. You could just say 10-4, she whispered. What? Never mind. This was not the time for her to give the aliens a lesson on Earth radio codes. I'm moving to the other unit. Understood. Barco, Akon, are you in position? Affirmatives came through, one in a bubbly, childlike voice. Valentina looked at her bracer. That's what Barco's voice sounds like? She shook her head and moved around the corner, dashing low through a slice of lighted catwalk. As the prioritized channels quieted, Thassodar's conversation broadcast again. How do we know you won't talk to the authorities the moment you're off-world? Valentina recognized Lomac's lying voice. Why would I do that, Thassador? Why would I do that, Thassador? Agreeing to such a deal would make me complicit. It would cost me everything. I thought you cared for these humans, Jax. Some of them, perhaps. I'm sure you'd be willing to let me give you a list of those not to abduct. As for the others, good forestry requires cutting down some trees. Good herd management means getting rid of the weak. As you pointed out on your ship, this would actually be a good thing for the human species, though of course they wouldn't see it that way. Damn right we wouldn't, Valentina whispered, only half listening to the conversation. Thassodar was putting up a good show. She had to keep reminding herself that he was just lying to them. She reached the second storage unit without complication and used the same technique to climb the door and look through the window. She gasped. This one was not empty. There were maybe a dozen people in the room, lying on the floor. She activated her communicator again. The nest is full of eggs. I repeat, the nest is full of eggs. What nest? Can you see inside the storage unit yet? Valentina rolled her eyes. That's the never mind. Yes, I see inside the storage unit and it's full of people. Waste no time. I'm certain how much longer Ranger Jax can hold their attention. Valentina let go of one tracker and pulled the laser knife from her belt. She stretched to her tiptoes on the second hinge to reach the topmost one. It was awkward, but she managed. She pressed the shining blade of the knife to the hinge and watched as it cut through the hinge. She was slower than Thassodar had been, especially in this awkward position, but after a couple of seconds the hinge was severed. She moved down to the third and fourth hinge and cut through it. Moments later she was slicing through the final hinge. As soon as the knife was free, the door creaked and she looked up just in time to see it falling toward her. Wide-eyed, she reached up with both hands to grab it. She hadn't expected it to fall so fast. Shit, it's heavy! She caught it, but the weight of the big door was pushing her toward the metal platform. If it landed on her, it could crush her. She rolled sideways out from under the door, and it hit the metal floor just before the door did. She lost the grip on the laser knife, and it skidded across the platform and over the edge. Lomax turned to the stairs. Very well, Jax. Let's just go to the office here, and we'll pick out some lovely destinations for your well-earned vacation. All four of Lomax's henchmen grunted and grumbled under their breath at this. Quiet! All of you! Get back to work! A loud metallic crashing sound from above them, and a small glowing object tumbled through the air toward the floor below. What was that? Lomax turned back and glared at Thassodar. What are you up to, Jax? Hermes, I found the human for you, joked Dorsch. Get her! Lomax reached for Thassodar's arms as Hermes vanished back into the darkness. Now! Thassodar pulled a magna cuff from under his jacket and snapped it into place on Lomax's wrist. As he reached for the matching cuff, the metal platform shook. Red armored giants emerged from the dim shadows on either side of the metal scaffolding. Grote turned to find Akon barreling down on him, battle staff at the ready. No stranger to fighting, he leaped forward and grabbed the staff with two of his forehands. His great strength, though, was still not enough to counter Akon's inertia. The pair went down together on the platform. Barco charged down the empty path Hermes had been standing on, but Dorsch hurried to intercept them. Barco brought his staff down like a lance and caught Dorsch in the midsection, knocking him back several feet. Dorsch wrapped two of his tentacles around the staff and moved his healing ones out of the way behind him. Lomax jerked away from Thassodar as he saw the other cuff come out. He backed up and turned to dash down the stairs toward the office. Thassodar took 2 steps in chase before being cut off. Shold flipped through the air and landed astride the rails of the stairwell, his eyes locked with Thassodar's. He drew 2 wicked-looking daggers from behind his back, licking his lips at the thought of violence. Far above, there was the sound of shattering glass, and a thin rod zipped between them, hitting one railing and locking onto it. Attached to the rod was a long rope. With a glance upward, they saw a golden figure riding down the rope at a dangerous speed. Visu reached the end of the rope and landed on his feet before Jax, his eyes on Shold. He unsheathed his electric sword with a crackling metallic scratch. Go after the leader, Ranger. He shifted into a fighting position, the electric sword raised overhead, pointing at Shold. I will take care of this one. Visu lunged forward, and Thassodar didn't hesitate. He dashed under Visu's upraised arm as Shold dodged to one side. His feet skipped 2 stairs at a time as he raced after Lomax. Valentina tugged on the arm of one of the unconscious people in the chamber. The man was broad-shouldered with a beer gut. He didn't bulge. This was supposed to be the easy job. Here, little girl, I won't hurt you. The voice of Hermes called from outside on the platform. Come on out. She cursed under her breath and dropped to the floor. Lying amid the other sleeping humans, she reached into the belt pocket and spread her arms as though she had fallen. Her hair fell across her face, and she cracked her eyelids to watch the door. A blurred figure filled the frame and walked in. I know you're here somewhere. He looked back and forth in the dim light as he grew closer to her. Another step and he'd be right beside her. He stepped forward. Valentina slapped cuffs around his ankles and heard the click that locked them in place. You bit! She triggered the cuffs and they snapped his ankles together. He lost his balance and fell into the pile of humans. He cursed her thoroughly as he struggled to free himself from the tangle of limbs and people. Valentina scrambled to her feet. He rolled sideways and grabbed her own ankles before she could step away, pulling her feet out from under her. In a flash, he was scrambling up her body. Damn it, let me go! You think because my feet can't move that I'm not fast? You made a mistake, girl. He reached her face and pushed himself up on one elbow, slapping her across the face hard. Valentina cried out and grabbed his arms, clutching at his shirt, clawed toward his face as he continued to slap her. Suddenly she went limp and fell back onto the floor. He rolled away from her and sat up, reaching for the cuffs. I wish he hadn't made me do that. I'm not like my family. Valentina stood up and coughed. He turned. In one hand she trained the NEI pistol on his head. His NEI blocking necklace dangled from her other hand. Sucker. She fired the pistol, and the blast hit him full in the face, knocking him flat on his back, his eyes open. Thassodar was faster than Lomax, but he knew the facility better and had a head start. He pushed back the sleeves of his jacket, wanting the bracers exposed in case he needed them. He chased Lomax down another catwalk and then up a set of stairs. Lomax picked up a large wrench as he passed by a table and threw it back at Thassodar as he turned the corner at the top of the stairs. He almost didn't block it, but was able to deflect it with one of the Vendosian bracers and continued the chase. Stop, Lomax! This is over! He didn't answer but kept running, each time he turned back to throw something. Thassodar could see he was wheezing. He couldn't maintain his pace much longer. He reached the control platform and ran straight to the console. He grabbed a switch and turned around, his chest heaving from the exertion, his orange face tinged with blue as he sucked in oxygen. One more step, he panted. I throw this switch. Thassodar slowed, hands apart. I give up. What does that switch do? It's not a guessing game, you idiot. This switch starts the machine. And Hermes went up to put your human in first. Thassodar looked back over his shoulder at the north side. There was no movement, no sign of either Valentina or Hermes. He looked back as he heard power rumbling through the facility. Lomax had already thrown the switch and run. Thassodar ran to the control panel and shoved, but the switch didn't go up as easily as it went down. He glanced down the catwalk as Lomax's heavy footfalls clanged away into the deepening shadow. The drum of energy extraction chambers began to turn. And that's the end of chapter 20. I like the pace of this chapter. Nothing wrong with it. But I don't know how Thassodar and Lomax got into that confrontation in the beginning. And the reason I say that is because if there's a plan, if Vicious people had found where they're keeping everything, where all this is happening, that's fine. I don't need to know that they found it and they got to there and blah, 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 blah. But I want to know how Thassodar and Lomax got into that conversation and how it was presented to Lomax in that way. Because if I were Lomax, I'd be like, how did you escape? And, all this stuff having to do with it. So there's a bit of a question mark in the beginning of it. But honestly, that's really the only question mark I have so far. If you have a story that's just waiting to be read, I want to read it. Send me those unpublished or self-published works to the email address in the description below, and you might be the next featured author in an episode of I'll Read That. Let's build this community where writers are supporting writers, and everybody's story has an opportunity to be heard. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Those thoughts, those criticisms, anything you have to say, could help another author and help them develop and grow their stories. As always, from me to you, keep writing, and I'll read that.
I'll read that, a story to be told, unpublished words.